Test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Atha na ke tra di shla. Astra stosted. I know I'm alive, are you?
Hello, hello. Are we on the record? Are we ready? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call this work session to order. This is the Naa'bik'iyati Committee of the 25th Navajo Nation Council. We do have a work session in for today's agenda. I am presiding, and as Speaker Crystalline Curley is not in today, so I am assisting her at this time. We're going to go ahead and call this session to order at 9:06. And I'm looking around the chambers. There is nobody here. We do have Speaker Damon, who was here, as well as Norman Begay. So it looks like they're the only two delegates who are here present. We'll wait a few more minutes. I don't think that we do. I don't think we need quorum for this work session. Is that correct? Oh, we started? Yeah, just let her know. And that right now there's only two delegates, but they're in the getting coffee. Delegate Norman Begay and Speaker Seth Damon. Delegate Crotty, can you hear me? Hello? Delegate Crotty? Can you hear me, Delegate Crotty? Delegate Crotty, can you hear me? Can they hear me online? Delegate Crotty, can you hear me? How many delegates do we have online? Delegate Crotty, can you hear me? Delegate Crotty, this is Delegate Charles Newton. I'm assisting Speaker Curley today. I will be helping with the work session as Chair Pro Tem. We did call the meeting to order at 9:06. We currently have only two delegates that I have seen, Speaker Seth Damon, as well as Delegate Norman Begay. So there's nobody else who is here, but we did call the session to order at 9:06. So we're going to wait and start at exactly 9:15. with whoever is present during that time. I believe, Delegate Crotty, that you may be the only delegate online for this work session. Good morning, Shiaj. Delegate Tolth, we see that you are online. Both you and Delegate Crotty are both online. I just got finished explaining that at this point, the only two delegates that we have in chambers, actually, Delegate Damon walked across back to Speaker's office, but he is here, as well as Delegate Norman Begay. I did see him here this morning. So we have, okay. Good morning, Chair Parrish. It looks like you are online as well. We are going to go ahead, as soon as Speaker Damon comes back into chambers, we're going to go ahead and proceed forward to roll call, since he is the sponsor of the legislation, and then we'll proceed forward with invocation. We'll recognize guests and visiting officials, and we'll go ahead and we'll proceed forward with the work session for today. Let's do this. We've got 3 delegates online per Dana. Because it's a work session, delegates can take part via teleconference. So we'll go ahead, and we did call this meeting to order at 9:06. As you got something to say? Okay. What's that? Go ahead, keep going. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do roll call at this morning. Staff, can you assist us with roll call?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Manuel Rico, Chief of Staff with Speaker's Office. Currently, you have yourself, you have Honorable Norman Begay, Honorable Seth Damon, Honorable Amber Naa'bik'iyati, Honorable Shandeen Parrish, and Honorable George Tolth on the line.
Thank you for that, Mr. Rico. So with 6 delegates present, roll call is completed. We'll go ahead and move forward at this time to invocation. Since we don't have any delegates currently in the chambers, I'll go ahead and provide invocation this morning if there are no objections. We pray to you here at this time, that you look down upon us, that you forgive us here for our sins, that you look down upon us and that you help us to be better at what we do, to be better people, to make better choices, to make better decisions. We pray to you here at this time, and we thank you for all your good blessings, those that we're willing to accept so easily, and then those that teach us lessons along the way. We thank you here at this time for giving us one more day here on earth to be able to do the work on your behalf. We thank you, God, for all of your blessings, all of the good things that you've given us, all of the blessings that have taught us lessons. We thank you at this time for giving us this air to breathe, for giving us this water to drink, to be able to spend one more day here on earth as we move into the holidays, to be able to celebrate with our families. We thank you for all of these good blessings. We ask that you continue to guide us, that you walk beside us, that you help us each and every day, that you shine your light upon us, that you keep evil away from us, that you help us each and every day with our endeavors to be able to do work here on behalf of our people, that you walk beside us and that you guide us each and every day with the decisions that we make, that you help us each and every day, that you protect us, that you watch over us, that you keep us safe, that you help us to be able to go back home each and every day to our families, to be able to put our arms around them, to be able to tell them that we love them. We pray to you here at this time, and we give you all of our worries, all of our needs, all of our wants. We remember all of those out there, all of our people out there who are struggling, all of our elders out there who need help, all of the people who are praying to you this morning for whatever it is that they want in their life, whatever it is that they need in their life, whatever it is that they're asking for. We ask here at this time that you hear those prayers and that you help them with whatever it is that they're asking for. We pray to you this way in your name. Okay, so we're going to move down to item number 2, recognizing guests and visiting officials. Again, we are currently in chambers. We do have Delegate Norman Begay, Delegate Speaker Damon, and myself who are here in chambers, as well as staff. We have 3 delegates who are online, Delegate Crotty, as well as Chair Parrish and Delegate Tolf. I don't believe there are any other delegates who have joined us online. But delegates, at this time, is there any delegates who wish to recognize a guest or any visiting officials at this time? Okay, not hearing anything or not seeing any movement here in chambers. I'm going to assume that we're going to move past. We don't have anybody to recognize, no guests or visiting officials. I do want to, I want to recognize my niece. She actually stepped out of chambers, but I do have my niece who is on break from college, her first semester, who is joining me here today. We're having an auntie day is what she calls it. So I'm really excited that she's going to get to witness that here today. Oh, looks like we got 2 people who are present in the gallery. Oh, and my niece is here. Sorry, Shiaja, the column was in your way. So I'm glad that you're here. But I do want to recognize her. Her name is Olivia Barney, her first year at Fort Lewis College. She is currently on fall break, so I'm excited that she's here to witness council in action on this very important topic here today. So welcome, Shiaja. Since, again, there's no other delegates who want to recognize guests or visiting officials, so we're going to move down to item number 3, the work session topic. We have legislation number 0139-23, which was called for a work session. Mr. Rico, if you could assist us in reading the legislation into the record, as well as the history provided and why we are having a work session here today. Mr. Rico? Or staff?
Yeah, Madam Pro Tem Speaker. in legislation number 0139-23, and action relating to the Health, Education, Human Services, Law and Order, Budget and Finance, and Naa'bik'iyati committees, and a nomination council repealing 9 NNC subsection 2C of the Marriage Act of 2005 to uniformly recognize all marriages within the Navajo Nation and amending other provisions in Title IX of the Navajo Nation Code related to marriage within the Navajo Nation. On October 12, legislation 0139-23 was tabled to hold a Naa'bik'iyati committee work session within 30 days to discuss whether a referendum will be introduced or have chapter officials provide their input on the proposed legislation. Motion by Honorable George H. Toth and second by Honorable Rick Inez, with a vote of 13 in favor and 6 opposed. Madam Pro Tem Speaker.
Thank you for that, Shema. Thank you for assisting us here today and for reading the legislation as well as the history into the record. We do have the prime sponsor of the legislation, Speaker Seth Damon, who is here to present his legislation. And we also, for the record, do have Casey Allen Johnson, delegate, who has joined us here in chambers as well. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over at this time to Speaker Damon to present your legislation and to begin this work session. Speaker Damon.
Thank you very much. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to not only members of the 25th Navajo Nation Council Naa'bik'iyati Committee that are here in the chambers, Honorable Shay, Honorable Norman Mbigay. Good morning, Honorable Vice Chair Casey Johnson. To my colleagues listening in, good morning. Thank you very much for being on the call. Good morning to our relatives listening in that are not only here within the Four Sacred Mountains, but outside the Four Sacred Mountains. My first question moving forward is that I know that there's the discussion item for us to go ahead and hold a work session was held by a motion by Honorable George Tolles and second by Honorable Chairman Rick Nez. My question back to the body first before we even continue moving forward, Madam Pro Tem Chair Charles Noon. Thank you again too as well for being here and overseeing this work session today before Thanksgiving, which is traditionally held this weekend. My first question is back to you, Madam Chair, is there going to be any questions? And if so, I can proceed forward. But if there's not going to be any questions, because I don't have anybody, I just now talked to delegates on the floor, and there's not going to be anything specifically. So I don't know if there's going to be any questions. So I don't see the individuals that actually voted for this motion for this or second for this. So that's my question. I don't want to harbor anybody, and I just want to make sure if there is, and I will specifically go into details as I have agents on the call who are ready to present. Madam Speaker, Madam Pro Tem Chair.
All these titles, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can just say pro tem if that helps. We also have another person who is joining us. Sorry, I got to change out my glasses. We have Delegate Curtis Yanito, who has also entered the chambers at this time. Committee members, I think Speaker Damon is asking a question regarding this work session. It looks like the motion for the work session was made by Delegate George Tolth. It was seconded by Delegate Rick Nez. We currently have Delegate George Tolth online with us, as well as Delegate Crotty and Chair Parrish. I believe that they're the only 3 delegates who are online with us right now. In the chambers, we have Delegate Curtis Yanito, we have Vice Chair Casey Allen Johnson, and we have Delegate Norman Begay. And as you stated, Speaker Damon, that you did speak to the delegates here in chambers. There's not any specific questions that they have. So I'd like to ask those who are listening in online, are there any specific questions regarding this legislation? If there are questions, Speaker Damon will go ahead and take to the floor to present the legislation, and he does have agents on the line who will also be happy to assist during this time. So do we have any delegates who are listening in online who have any questions to this legislation? Delegate Curtis Yanito, you just walked in the door. Did you have any question? Oh, Delegate Crotty's got a question. Delegate Crotty, did you have a question? Delegate Crotty, go ahead, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Delegate Damon for sponsoring this legislation. During Naa'bik'iyati, before we went into voted on the work session, there was an issue delegates raised in terms of the public comments for this legislation, and so there was a discussion about moving forward with a vote from the council versus a referendum. Can you give me an insight as sponsoring this legislation, how you've responded to individuals who are opposing the legislation, and what type of opportunities have been given for those questions or concerns to be considered? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Delegate Crotty. So for that reason, Speaker Seth Damon is going to go ahead and proceed with the presentation. He does have agents on the line as well, and so hopefully during that time he'll be able to answer your question, Delegate Crotty. Before we begin, Speaker Damon, Delegate Curtis Yanito does have his hands up. Delegate Yanito.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, dan Hideodon IC Tado. I was hoping that everybody would be here, but I thought this meeting starts at 10. That's why I was just kind of pacing my travel this morning. I have a question on this, this tabling motion that we voted on the last time. It was, believe it was George Todt and Rick Nez that motioned to table this. And then in order to put it back on the floor, I think those two parties are supposed to motion to, untable this motion. Is that, I need a correction, clarification on that. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Delegate Yanito. Because this is a work session, the motion and the second was made to hold a work session. That's currently what we're doing right now. Now, when the legislation gets back to, I believe it was motioned at Naa'bik'iyati, when it gets back to Naa'bik'iyati, then we do a motion and a second to remove the legislation from the table so that we can move forward with the legislation. So at this point, it is a work session, so Delegate Toth is currently on the line. Delegate Rick Naz is not here, but we are going to go ahead and proceed forward with this work session. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor at this time to Speaker Damon, who's going to go ahead and present the legislation and hopefully answer the questions that were posed. Speaker Damon, the floor is.
Never mind.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much again, Madam Pro Tem, for the time and and for my colleagues' interest and commitment to having a conversation specifically on legislation 0139-23. Thank you very much for giving me the floor, and colleagues. Thank you very much for allowing the discussion on the item that we have at hand. To members of the 25th Navajo Nation Council Naa'bik'iyati Committee, Legislation 0139-23 is a resolution that's specifically stated in the title, repealing 9 NNC subsection 2C of the Dene Marriage Act of 2005 to uniformly recognize all marriages within the Navajo Nation and amending other provisions in Title IX of the Navajo Nation Code related to the marriage within the Navajo Nation. I will go over first the legislation itself, specifics, and then I'm going to read over, or give the floor over to a couple of different presenters. I do have Dr. Jennifer Dennett-Dale on the call, Alan Joe, and Miss Wendy Gray Eyes, who are all here to present to as well on behalf of an effort to really help assist in recognizing all individuals across the Navajo Nation, wherever you come from. And I just want to say again, welcome to this conversation that we're having. And in the past council, this legislation has never got to this point, and I just want to say that with the slow progress towards movement of recognizing the ability to, one, really focus in on the respect of individuals, equality of who we are as a people, recognizing that there is individuals across the Navajo Nation who feel that they are being discriminated, in this case, from marital status, gender identity and expression. And the opportunity that we have as policymakers is really trying to identify what we can do to help making sure everybody is welcome and has a seat at the table. And what this legislation does, if you look on page 5 of 11, is really a couple of key factors. Is in the name itself, is repealing the Dene Marriage Act of 2005. Back in 2005, there was a legislation that was passed, and that legislation really focused in on to recognize that marriage, whether it be common law, whether it be through a marriage license, whether it be through the promotion that was recognized by the Navajo Nation, was between a man and a woman. What this does is that it really tries to change that markup and strikes out language on there on page 5 of 11, line 26, C, marriages between persons of the same sex is voided and prohibited. That language is stricken out. If you look on page 6 of 11, really trying to identify what the commonality of what we're doing, what I'm doing here, and what the Navajo Nation Council will ultimately to have the conversation debate on the floor, is to strike out language and recognize that striking out language on line 13 between a husband and a wife, to putting in new language in there that says purpose, intentions of the party is to become spouses. To become spouses. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or a husband and a wife. It recognizes marriage equality amongst individuals of our own people. Item number line 14, % consent between new language, both parties to become spouses, striking out husband and wife again. If you look on to the next page, it's striking out language on page 7 and 11, recognizing a man and a woman, but partnerships. And the key factor in here is that it's recognizing that every language in here on a marriage certificate would be recognized by the Navajo Nation, whatever gender you are, and it specifically changes that direction on page 711, line 16, striking out the language saying, I, the man named above, hereby take the woman named above to be my lawful wife, and I, the woman named above, hereby taking the man named above for my lawful husband. Striking that language out and clearly puts on there to say, I hereby certify that the spouse is named above. It just specifics on these certain laws that we have on the books within the Navajo Nation really tries to identify to say, you know, we as a Navajo people are not only going to recognize just a man and a woman, but spouses, individuals who are wanting to be recognized by our Navajo Nation government, not by parties that are outside the Navajo Nation government, but specifically within the Navajo Nation government. And if you look on page 8 of 11, it identifies that too as well, on the stricken language of line 21, where it says husband and wife is stricken, but now we change that portion of domestic relations to property rights and liability. The separating property is defined in subsection 202 on page 8 of 11. And in here, there's some language that needed to be clarified, and it doesn't matter if you're a male or female. Again, property would be back to the definition within a relationship that's recognized by the Navajo Nation government between both spouses, not just a him or a her in this case. And the preceding aspects of it moving forward is to know that that the recognition by the Navajo Nation government moving forward is recognizing people's ability to not only hone in on what their personal ambitions might be, but what the Navajo Nation government wants to uphold. Specifically, in this case, it'd be for property rights and liability. So on that, item number 27, it's striking all the language out, all property, both real and personal, of the wife owned and claimed by his or her marriage and the acquired afterward by gift, devise, and descent, and also the increased rents issued and profit thereof in a separate property. Is taken out, and the reason why is just to really identify the interest, going back to the first paragraph, and the definitions of property separation is just between both spouses. So you'll see continuously out through the legislation where language is stricken. You'll see that on subsection 203 on page 9 and 11. Liability of debts is in between stricken language of a husband and a wife, and now it's either spouse. If you look on subsection 204, between a married couple, woman is stricken out, and it's couples that are put in there. Spouse is put in there in the implications of where a woman's language or a husband's name is stricken. Spouse is used in here as a collaborative effort, or as a marker across the board to really try to say and identify what the clarification is in this legislation. Community property is defined in this case currently between a husband and a wife. What this language does is it strucks that out and puts to the spouse or either spouse. His or her, he or she lives separately and apart from his or her spouse. It recognizes that too as well. So we're not talking about communal property, or not only the definition of marriage, but what would be commonly as a practice if there was any kind of separation too as well. If you're looking onto subsection 207, personal property is identified too as marriage, but also between both parties consenting, not just for between an individual that was probably utilized in some older language, which was just to a husband for some reason. And subsection 208 is liability of common debts. If you see that, stricken language again is taken out between the husband and wife to either spouse, his or her spouse. Item number 209 is the legal capacity of a married woman. Generality And in here, it takes some consideration, just some clarification that at that time, I guess when this was originally adopted, it was 21 years of age. Now it goes back to 18 years of age. The contracts debts is in here too as well. I think this is just some updated language that needed to be clarified. It really tried to hone into, I think, give more authority to a husband than to the wife. And in this case, the stricken language on here is the wife may contract debts where necessary or for herself and her children upon the credit of her husband. That language is stricken out. If you look to the action of debt collection on subsection 201, or actually 210, 210, it's just really, I tried to identify that the clarification again between a wife and a husband is just clarified that it's going to be utilizing spouses in there as a primary language. So if you continuously look throughout the legislation, it's just clarifying the difference between recognizing individuals that are language that has been utilized when the original adoption of this Marriage Equality Act legislation was done back in 2005. It was identified between a husband and a wife, but in this case, it's between, it would be recognizing individual and spouses. I want to give some time over at this time to Dr. Jennifer Dale, but before I give some time over, I do want to get some time back to clarify and answer Madam Chair Crotty's question to us in that moving forward. So again, thank you, Madam Chair Crotty, for listening in online, and I will help clarify that question after Dr. Jennifer Dale does some information on the legislation that we do at hand. So, Madam Pro Tem, I'll go ahead and turn the floor over at this time to Dr. Jennifer Dale.
Thank you, Speaker Damon. Dr. Jennifer Dale, the floor is yours.
I'm on.
Yes, we can hear you. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Yate. I want to thank the delegates who are sponsoring this work session, and I want to thank Honorable Seth Damon and Honorable Newton Charles for working on this legislation and bringing it again before the council and the delegates. I appreciate your perseverance. I appreciate the respect that you have accorded to former council delegate Eugene So, who is an elder and who worked on this legislation and brought it before the council unsuccessfully in the last council before this new one convened. I've read the legislation several times, and just based on my my research, who I am as a Dene woman, a Dene educator, I do support the efforts to repeal the Dene Marriage Act. I do. Let me introduce myself. I'm speaking quite quickly here. I am Jennifer Dale. Logan Shlon, Ashihi Bashichin, Kilichini Dashiche, Toha Glini Dashanala, Tohachi, Dan IUC Dat Nasha, though I am a voting member, a citizen of the Navajo Nation, and I vote in the Tohatchi chapter. My delegate is Nathan Nota. And so, in terms of my support to repeal the Dene Marriage Act, I think that it should be noted once again that the fashioners of this legislation have been very careful. They have conferred with Navajo Nation DOJ on the language and what the repealed legislation actually does. This has been repeated over and over to, first of all, affirm that there isn't any changes in how Dene perceive marriage and how they perceive what marriage is for in terms of the of men and women marriages. It doesn't change any of that. What it does do, as the resolution shows, particularly items H, the resolutions addressing discrimination, item I, Navajo Nation Council already expresses support for our LGBTQ two-spirit relatives. And then item K speaks to my own research. And so I do once again want to point out that, first of all, it does not change existing understandings and the legality that's already in place. And so this legislation really just affirms what the Navajo Nation already espouses and supports in different resolutions, and this is historically. And so I think that the delegates should keep this in mind as they think about the ramifications for this legislation. The third item that I want to address specifically, which is item K, is that the historical, the history of the exclusion, the disappearance, and the invisibility of our what we call non-binary gendered relatives has always been a part of our histories as Indigenous people. In the last at least 30, 40 years, scholars working within communities and working with their relatives illuminated these non-binary relationships, these non-binary identities. And these identities don't fit with the physical body, the biological body. And so my work after working on Diné leadership with my historical research on our ancestors, who happened to be my great grandparents, I then moved on to think about women's leadership, particularly the way in which Navajo women's leadership in the government, the formation of the Navajo government, had been compromised as a result of the imposition of Western democratic principles. And so that was that's the beginning of my research. And then I moved from these questions about women's leadership, and it seemed like a natural journey to then move into thinking about gender beyond the masculine and the feminine, and to think about our LGBTQ two-spirit relatives and their roles in our communities and our nations. And so in my work, I did do historical work. I did find, it was a few sources, Navajo recognition of multiple gender identities, and so from what I understand, and talking to my own people, including those who have knowledge of traditional knowledge about our society and our communities, I do come to the realization that our people have always recognized our relatives who don't fit into the binary. Their identities are different, and that these identities are formed at birth, before birth, and that grandparents most often well acknowledge these gendered differences. So that's been my research. And so I think based on the work that I've done, the historical work, talking to our people, I do agree with the efforts to repeal the Diné Marriage Act. And on one very basic level is that it's simply the right thing to do. That we espouse traditional principles based upon that we are inclusive, that we acknowledge all of our relatives. And I think this legislation is already taking what we have affirmed and acknowledged in previous legislation and previous policies in agreeing to accept federal policies that we will not practice discrimination based on gender and race and sex. So I think it's just an extension of what we have already agreed to and our leaders have agreed to. I have at my disposal bunch of research articles, ones that I've also written to affirm gender diversity, that if anyone is interested, I'm more than happy to send my work and to my research to anyone who wants to read it and to understand the issues differently or in a better way. I think it's way past time for our leaders to acknowledge and to recognize the diversity in our communities and our nation, and to affirm that every single person who is Diné has the right to participate equally as citizens of the Navajo Nation. And so that's my testimony before you, Honorable Naa'bik'iyati.
Thank you, Dr. Danette Dell. Speaker Damon, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I do have additional presenters who is Miss Wendy Gray Eyes. Maybe give her some time, Madam Pro Tem.
Thank you, Speaker Damon. Ms. Gray Eyes, the floor is yours.
Hi, this is Wendy Gray Eyes. Good morning. Are you guys able to hear me?
We can hear you just fine, Ms. Gray Eyes.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, thank you to Honorable Seth Damon and Honorable Eugenia Charles for sponsoring this legislation. My name is Wendy Gray Eyes, and I am Twittini, Smith, Twittini Bashichin, Desashana Dashike, Dotwahana Dashanella, and I'm from Kienta, grew up in Kienta, just recently got a home site lease there near Tate, so working to build a home back home in my community. But I'm very thankful for this opportunity to provide my input on this legislation. And I've been giving this a lot of thought. I'm actually a fellow right now at Diné College, and I took a course with Navajo Fundamental Law, and this was one of the papers that I actually worked on for Mr. David Nez, my teacher from that Navajo Fundamental Law. And I thought a lot about it because my background is actually in statistics. I used to work for the Office of Educational Research and Statistics there, and I was prompted to think about, what marriage means for the Navajo people. And looking back at the statistics, I'm seeing that we're really changing in terms of how many people actually get married. In the U.S. Census, it's reported that just over a little 30% of Navajos actually do get married. And I know, thinking about the conversations about what marriage is and how it's changing for our people, it's not, it's actually, being married is more of an outlier than it is as a norm for many heterosexual and homosexual people who live in our communities, especially for our LGBTQIA who've been restricted from that opportunity. And, giving this a lot of thought as a woman, I just wanted to also comment that, finding a person to love and love you back is one of, I think, our biggest challenges. And I'd written this in my statement before when I submitted it to the comments, but I do think it's important to maybe raise that today again, that when we tell people that their love is not right or is not part of our traditional history, we're really enacting a type of colonial behavior of this conquer and divide mindset that continues to set us on this course of existing in a fragmented place. And so when we tell people that, it continues to erode our Navajo Nation's basic sense and code of our foundational being, and that's our relationships around death. And I think for our government to really be the nation to help heal our people, to unite our people, and to push back against this mindset that we really have to give people a chance to choose who they love. And I think in terms of repealing the Navajo Marriage Act, this is a really important step, because when we start rejecting certain members of our community and tell them what they're doing is not right, then we do permit certain microaggressions against our own relatives. And when I describe what I mean by microaggressions, and this is really dismissing the lived experiences of our people, and they can lead to what is termed micro assaults or even micro insults, meaning that these statements and behaviors that equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the Navajo Nation on account of sex, nor shall any person within its jurisdiction be denied equal protection in accordance with the laws of the Navajo Nation, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So, reading this section, it really prompted me to think about how in our own Navajo fundamental law, it is encoded to think about, the equality of our people, the equality of who we should love, promote and condition people and children to become LGBTQIA+. And I think there's a real ignorance about that, and we need to educate ourselves. And I appreciate that Dr. Danette Dell is offering a chance for herself. So that's kind of where my perspective is, and I hope today that you do consider repealing the Naa'bik'iyati Marriage Act. And I appreciate this time, and I'm very grateful to
my clans are Twitchidi Nishlo, Twabahabashchin, Sit Najini Che, and Touchy Dashanella. First, I'd like to also recognize the Navajo Nation honorable delegates and Madam Chair Pro Tem Charles Newton, but also Honorable Seth Damon for sponsoring this bill. I'm in support to repealing the Naa'bik'iyati Marriage Act. I'd like to kind of shift gears a little bit just to speak on a person's right. Globally, all humans do deserve this right, including the right to love without the discrimination from governments. In our government today, there's 50 states that recognize gay marriage. And I myself am married and have gone outside the Navajo Nation and got married in March of 2023 and is recognized by the state of Arizona. So I know the inequalities that exist on the Navajo Nation when it comes to this particular subject. But I also understand that there's a lot of people that I know personally that are waiting for the Navajo Nation to act so that they can, get married as well on the Navajo Nation, are on the right side of history, and history will honor them. And those who tried to constrict human rights were wrong. And I truly believe that same-sex marriage is a human right, and history reflects that as well. And I know that the thoughts that I share today will involve any questions, opinions, and these are opinions that are still evolving even in communities throughout not only on the Navajo Nation, but throughout the United States. As it happened so many times before, opinions will converge once again with the truth. But all people are created free and equal in dignity and rights. And we are called once more to make the real of the words. But I just wanted to get on this call today to say that I'm a Navajo man. I'm a gay Navajo man, proud, and I'm married in the state of Arizona, but unfortunately am not recognized under the Navajo Nation tribe. Today, I just wanted to say that I support to repeal this legislation. And we asked the Navajo Nation, the Council of the Navajo Nation, the governing body elected to represent all Navajo people, to consider passing legislation that grants the basic human right of people and the ability to love without discrimination, and repeal the bill for the same-sex marriage union. I just want to say thank you again for hearing my voice today, and again, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to speak. To all the honorable delegates here in attendance, as well as the other people who spoke today, I appreciate it. And that, with that, I will pass to the next person.
Thank you for that, Mr. Joe. Does that conclude your comments at this time? Okay, we're going to go ahead and give the floor back to Speaker Damon. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the presenters. Thank you, Dr. Jennifer Dale, Ms. Gray Eyes, and Mr. Joe for your not only one of your commitment to prosperity amongst equality, but also the commitment to really trying to identify and educate across the board of what you all do on a daily basis, and including bringing that conversation back to the table. And when I'm talking about conversation back to the table here amongst council, that's what we're having today. We wouldn't have this conversation if this wasn't, if we weren't here, if this legislation wasn't here before us. But I would, before I refer to any further comments, I just want to say, I'll yield, Madam.
Can we please stand? The Vice President is currently in council chambers. Vice President, if you can go ahead and join us. There is, is the nameplate on this side? I'm sorry. We have a special designated area for you. And we appreciate you being here with us at this time, Vice President.
Thank you again. Madam Chair, do I have the floor?
Yes, I'm sorry, Speaker Damon, and I should let people know that I've got my reading glasses on, so I can see people, but I can't see who they are. So just an FYI, and I apologize, Vice President. I saw you walk, I saw somebody walk in, I didn't know it was you. I do apologize. Speaker Damon, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much again. Good morning, Madam Vice President. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for open dialogue to this conversation too as well. Colleagues, again, thank you for wanting to have this discussion and this conversation. I think that since time before memorial, we've always had Two-Spirit and Nagle peoples and our oral traditions all the way through, and whether coming through treaty errors and then moving on forward, there's always been that discussion, and even through when we were going through the boarding school era, when they were trying to either shut us or kill us as indigenous people, we were resilient, and so were our family members, our aunts, our uncles that were part of the LGBTQ community. And moving on forward into the 60s and 70s, some of our first pioneers, and that had a ripple effect eventually back on Navajo. In 2005, that was what happened here when the 20th Navajo Nation Council passed this marriage equality, our marriage Act. And in the 2000s amongst the outside the four sacred mountains, inside the four sacred mountains, there was that continuation to fight for the rights, to chip away at in this chamber until Honorable Eugene So introduced this in the 24th Navajo Nation Council. And he did that by recognizing the inequality, the discrimination that he believed to garner what we had as a people, and really wanted to express that because of his status as an elder, as the most elder statesman under the 23rd. Recognize if there's, through our own Navajo Nation government, through processes like probate, through burial services, through social services, through our Navajo Nation insurance program, to adopt a child, ultimately even to get child support. We don't have that right now for our same-sex couples. We're not here to force anyone to do anything. We're not here to force anybody to recognize that, but we are here to change the premise of what we have moving forward. We're all five-fingered people. I always say that. And let me go to Madam Chair Crotty about your question about referendum. This legislation is to repeal the Dene Marriage Act of 2005 that was voted on and passed by the 20th Council. If policymakers made this in 2005 under the 20th Council, I believe, as presenters have said it and individuals continuously say it that support this legislation, that this is the right thing to do. If it's not this council, the 25th Council, under the 24th Council, we didn't even get this far. Under the 25th Council, we might not get to the end game, but we're getting there. We're continuously having this conversation. We're having leadership and policymakers talk about this issue. And I just hope to know that when this does go before the Navajo Nation Council, that we recognize that that change is a quality part of what we have as legislators. So I just want to say thank you to my colleagues for being here, either on the call. Honorable Casey Johnson, thank you for coming all the way from Western Agency to hear this conversation. Honorable Yanito, different avenues, decade by decade, there's been growth and change. Whether that growth and change has been positive, that's for Navajo people to decide. So again, I just want to ask to say thank you to everyone for allowing the presenters here today to have that conversation with y'all. And if there's any comments or questions, they're open here to have that conversation today. And if there's any specifics, I have not spoken to anyone. Any one of my colleagues has talked to me.
Agents. Committee members, second call. Last and final call for committee members. Speaker Damon. Oh, Delegate Crotty, the floor is yours.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Could you remind me what this legislation, is it a 2/3 vote of the council or is it the full majority? Thank you.
Delegate Crotty, it is a majority.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Speaker Damon and colleagues who are on the line, this is the very first time, I think, actually we may have had the vice president previous during the Nez administration who did listen in a few times as we had council and Naa'bik'iyati and work sessions. So I would like to ask, if you don't mind, Speaker Damon, Vice President Montoya, we are happy that you're here. This is what you call working together. We appreciate you being here today. I think this is your third time visiting council while we have been here. No visit from President yet, Hopefully that will change, but I just want to make that known. Vice President, I almost called you President Montoya. Vice President Montoya, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to you if you'd like to say a few words at this time. And Speaker Damon has allowed this as the sponsor of this legislation. Vice President, the floor is yours.
Kodo Shaho Agi Ba'ake Hinson 25th Navajo Nation Council work session for marriage equality. Di Kwagi Ayo Bayat do Halet Au do Nilton Halchine Lahait Au Bikidatanit Ido Bachanda Ilgato Leldo Halet Au Aya Bayadel Tito Lelta di no Aya Ko during the campaign, and it is a topic that is important to our communities out on Navajo Nation and across the United States, across the world. Shisido kudosa dago eya ba hensen bayat hido shiyaj hedo shideja kudo eya legislation was aigi. Aro shiyaj do 24th Navajo Nation Council dasada Eugene. So there's conversations about this legislation, about this subject, from our children, our grandchildren, and of course our elders. And ayo ba sa go eya amado aja amasana chedo another than linigi danit linigi nhalchina baha danit zendo ayo deinit ne. We love them with everything that we have, their accomplishments, their goals, their dreams, their hopes, everything that they have. And we receive them, especially now I'm thinking about it, during holidays, as they come home to us from faraway cities, faraway towns that they're working in, and they bring home their significant other to us, and we welcome them. We are that type of people that we love, we care, we honor, and we are respectful. And in this capacity, for myself, I think of all people as equal here on our Mother Earth. You know, that's something that was instilled within us from the time that we were conceived and grew in our mother's bellies and placed on this earth. To be respectful in all ways to one another. That's all we ask. And I have grown up in a world where I have to be respectful in all ways. Belief church, he was a pastor. And so my parents were divorced when I was young, and I had to grow up in all different ways of prayer because I was respectful to both my parents. And so I learned at an early age what respect is, how to navigate in each way that my parents brought me up. And I think with that, all I can ask is to be kind to one another, to be kind to one another's thoughts, to be kind in one another's ways of being here on this Mother Earth and surviving. 25th Navajo Nation Council, Speaker Damon. It may not happen in this 25th Navajo Nation Council, but at least there's a conversation happening. And again, I just ask that each one of our council delegates to be respectful to one another's thoughts and one another's ideas. And so far, that's what I see. inigi. That's the goal that I see here at the 25th Navajo Nation Council. That's my observation. Ako, ikihat lang ko do shaho aigi, do bashil ko jo ko do, yita hisatanigi. Again, my name is Rochelle Montoya. I am the 11th Navajo Nation Vice President. Hashlishni Ainshla, Tratnisani Ebachichin, Kentlachini Dashache, Trachini Dashanala. And thank you so much, Pro Tem Speaker, Shadeja Koro, Shahuin Tlaagi, and the recognition. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and a happy holiday.
Shada Njunya Hengzi, thank you for those words and for coming here to council to listen in on this work session. So with that, committee members, are there any other questions or comments at this time? If there is none, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to the next item of the agenda, which is the final recommendations. Delegate Curtis Yanito, the floor is yours.
Yateho, yeah, Lankodot, Damon, Kodo Nilsozigi, this legislation, Obayatki, she Damania, Aho, Newohot out there, do you go what anybody at hit or the ne, how that any bin Alkijadalki. To Khandat. She Yado Tobahan Sindande. I never encountered those things. Le Shilaz Ani. We never ate any etendo. Toshilbahaz Sindande. But it was mentioned that a dat any gidden a but not ani dat edano. Tobanjit Idashdo Nishe. Aronda a Hashint a Nagato a you have to have the respect for those individuals like that. Shidotni. Aronda Tobahans and then until I got to college. They college then Yanit and that's when I noticed they didn't need there's people picking on this little guy. It's easy looks like a really small guy, and they were picking on him. But I stopped that. I said, no way. This little child, but it was explained to me, the eight eshadoni. And I was kind of shocked to see, like Ishman na, why Ishman na the nete so. That's the first time I encountered one of those halves over there in college. I stopped that fight over there in Betchashwood, and then after that, the fight went away, and then I continued. I said, okay, these are the kind of people they are, and so. And then throughout the year, when I came back, I started recognizing my own relatives are like that. So and then I have nephews. As an uncle, you work in the fields and you work the ranch and so forth. And then you really want to see, these little nephews grow up into your ranching, taming horses and so forth. Rodeo da hashi dod lechen zo. But you observe your uncles, your nieces. That's how we are as uncles. And then you look over them and you kind of work with them where their weak areas are. Ashin ndat lotan later. And they, that's how you find out that they're one of them, because their laughter. Shkiyajit but eyajna lo not lotle. So, whoa, wait a minute, we start identifying those, but we never talked about it. It's odata, and their parents never talked about it too. They always been in a privately existing. A code, oshin you or tela. After you identify, you start to see. But if you're in the workforce, it's a different story. In you work with men's that you can cuss and whatever you can do over there on the job site. But over here, you don't identify people like that until you really start to recognize who they are. One, like this issue right here, I always think about religion. Anytime you say something about all marriage, that's what it says, all marriage. Shiban's this case, with that last presentation before it was tabled here in the chambers, there was concern about protection, hate, and there was talk about suicide. And so the way I see it is that they do need to have protection. Like, I guess he's from Arizona, married in Arizona. So, since we're talking about property issues, property, it comes into ownership, on both parties. And then here, we have grazing permits out on home site, at least on nation. And even with that, that goes down to heritage. The judge actually hands that down to the heir. So AI don't law does so. And then with property taxes and like vehicles registration, that's you go through those things with counties. A registration those laws are already set in place for that. With the home site lease and all the properties on the Navajo, that deals with the judges. That's already set in place. You said that, you're not going to be forced to be married into as a medicine man. Any churches don't. On your legislation, it says all marriage. That's what it says on there. With a lot of people that agrees on, there's just a minor, and then there's a lot of people that's against it, majority. Shaban's this case, I think, this hatred that it's been redrafted. You go, husbands and wives begin that as looking at that, you kind of you crossed out husbands and wives. My concern about wives is women's rights. Women won't have no protection. These women, they need protection. When I first encountered that over there in college, just in these halves, they told me that these halves, as to it's undated cuts, you know, like horses, you know, you watch those studs horses, you know, they have a group of mares, and then they fight over that, and in hadlo. What that no, even in did what that, and you know, they're against those kind of individual. Akobansa's case, so you know, there's husband and wives, and then you cross those off. Wives, these women, they need protection from these individuals. What and just like that the women needs protection. That we need a legislation to protect women. What I don't. He's too need. As men, we need protection too. You know, that's all I think is that would resolve this. You know, with the you know, that's our original ceremony here on the nation. And then with all these other churches, yeah, the Hazna, I don't I don't know what they're thinking. And with the peyote, I'm not familiar with all this Native American church. Yes, you know, two pairs as an man and a man, or a woman and a woman. What you know, that's kind of looks like it's gonna be odd. You know, you have to think about those things, those issues. The last time you know, is for reproduction, need that time. If you talk about marriage is a very serious issue. Marriage is for reproduction. Case. It's a ceremony for that purpose. You just don't, you know, touch each other just to have a marriage. You're supposed to reproduce. Because, you know, I'm thinking about these churches too. I think that's how they join couples together. It's gonna cause a lot of conflicts between a lot of families. Protection, you know, these LGQ, I don't know how you say it, but they need protection. You know, like even in that protection, you know, they can have like a property, you know, like a settlement in there. You can add those things in there. I don't Lego there's, you know, Balakana and their laws comes into this nation, I mean this United States, where the original Native Americans exist. You know, it's kind of odd because this marriage is really a serious situation. You know, it's for reproduction. And then on top of that, these kids that they're going to start adopting, they're going to face the same situation as that little kid that I first encountered over there in college. As 25th Navajo Nation Council. It's a very sensitive issue that I'm concerned about. ako the referendum ito nito. If we allowed it to go out and educate the communities out there, there's going to be a lot of fights. The Naa'bik'iyati siya. And di ayo, last time I know, Pro Temp Chair, you mentioned that this is just the lawmakers issue the Naa'bik'iyati zito. That's where it kind of, we can sneak this through and, approve it, but people's going to come after us. And that's what we talked about last time, to educate the community about this whole legislation. Even our resources, there's already approval over here, and then we present that case to the community out there. That's when a lot of conflict starts. This whole legislation here is really a sensitive issue. What on this case, because I know last time when I talked about this, I know some of the legislators, they stopped communicating with me. Hey, what's that? And that's what I said. What's that? So that's why I'm saying, I think it should be, I don't think it should be introduced into marriage, this legislation. All it needs is a protection. Arizona, just like that, there's opportunities out there. They can, and here in the nation, I know there's all kinds of religion that, it kind of contradicts different issues. This marriage, it just don't, it doesn't rhyme with, the whole conflict here. Individually. And I respect, whoever breathing and whoever's out there, I respect them all. What I want this case though, I got, there's people out there, they're addressing a lot this, what a wouldn't know that. And there's the other side, there's pros and cons on it. I don't know such a in Lego. So, it's a different society that we're talking about here. What I want this case, it's like a group, like a clan or something like that. It would. I want to go bahasido little ado hit other. She gives you about your case. Just have some respect for this information that I'm giving you. What are they hasido little? Yeah, Damon and Pro Temp.
Thank you for that, Delegate Yanito. Speaker Damon, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor back over to you for a response.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for colleagues for being here, and thank you, Madam Chair Parrish, for joining us in the chambers here for the discussion that we're having on legislation 0139-23. And going back to your comments, and I don't know if it was, I think there might have been a question or two regarding protection or clarification of individuals having, whether it be, individual organizations, whether you be from a traditional aspect or from a westernized, if not only Christianity-based organization to really adapt to having that local discussion, and possibly even thinking that this would be a forced thing that would be blanketed across the board of the Navajo Nation. One, if there's a request to myself for clarification regarding an amendment to explain that Hatathli or medicine organizations or any kind of church group organization does not need to accept this, if they do not believe in this, I'm okay with that amendment. This is a recognition specifically for the Navajo Nation government. That's what this is. This is recognizing by the Navajo Nation laws that the Navajo Nation, instead of just recognizing a marriage, now we're talking about just the government, between a man and a woman. This is a recognition between the Navajo Nation recognizing that it's not only inclusive of a marriage that's between a man and a woman, but it's also inclusive to accept individuals that might be of the same sex. And that's the clarity here, is that's an understanding that I just want to make, is that this isn't forcing anybody, any church groups again, or any medicine people across the Navajo Nation, that they must comply, that they need to comply, that they have to abide by this law. If you're a church organization, or if you're a medicine person that does not want to, that does not support this, by all means, you don't have to support this. Your church does not have to support this. You do not have to recognize that. You do not have to, we're not forcing, the government cannot force anybody to marry somebody. But what this does is it just gives that application portion back to saying that the Navajo Nation government recognizes same-sex marriages. You're talking about possible recommendations. I can put that amendment together, Honorable Unito, to put that clarification in there. I'm not trying to take any protection, whether it be away from women or away from even males in the role as whatever concept it might be under when you're talking about marriage, is about what laws that make the Navajo Nation recognize marriage. What is the methods? What is the laws that Navajo Nation has on the books that once you get married, you lose protection if I take women out or if I take men out? You will still have the same protection of property. You will still have the same protection of debts. Still have the same protection in common owned property, personal property, legal capacity, and the overall effectiveness to garner that acceptance, to knowing that I'm not sponsoring a legislation to take any protection rights against anyone. I think this is actually expanding protection rights, if we're talking about specifically only to protection, to not only to a man and a woman in this case, but also to individuals of the same sex that are wanting to be recognized by their Navajo government. You're talking, I think there was two other comments that I want to respond to about having the ability to take this back and having the people, or having leadership decide, and having that conversation about what your comments are here today. And one, possibly, I think you referred to the two words that I garnered from your presentation, or your back to legislation 0139-23. Those two things I took away too as well was, one, I am not trying to sneak this through. That's the whole reason why I agreed to have this work session. I'm not trying to sneak this legislation through the process. I'm trying to be as possible, and if there's any open dialogue to myself, I have not had that one conversation with any delegate that wants to put forth any possible amendments to this legislation. And that's what I did state in my opening presentation, is that if there's any possible recommendation for amendments to this legislation, please come and have that conversation with me. I am open to those ideas. If it's in regards of the second thing that you said was possibly worriedness or being scared for the avenue of what we want to talk about on the floor, and the education that we need to do back to the communities, I think that each one of us were elected by our communities to bring back that information. That's up to each individual one of us, that the people put into this chambers, to bring that information back home. And if there's a collaborative effort for me to help put that together, Honorable Yanito, I have no problem asking the Speaker's office to set up some kind of public session in your communities. I don't believe that that's something that would be, I would not want to frown upon. I think it's possible to do anything like that, to have that input out there. But I have not got a request. I have not got anything for myself, again, from any of my colleagues on this legislation. So I hope to know that, one, the education component is viable, and that could be something that's on the table. Two, I think the clarity for any kind of possible amendment, I can start helping assist, and that would be one of the things, Madam Pro Tem Speaker, that I would put into the final recommendations, that I'm open. And I'll say it again, if there's any possible amendments that colleagues, members of the 25th Navajo Nation Council want to present to legislation 0139-23, I'm open to that dialogue. And I put that out there again. So I don't know if there was any further questions, but I think there was a lot of comments, and I just want to clarify the thing about protection, and also the explanation on, I guess, what is not maybe expressed in this legislation, and that is trying to make sure that we are not forcing individuals, we're not forcing organizations, we're not forcing religion organizations to do anything that they're not privy or not wanting to do. What we're doing here is recognizing marriage between spouses, and that spouse could still be between a man and a woman. That could still be open arm to individuals of the same sex. So I hope I answered your question, if there was a question. But other than that, at this time, I'll go ahead and yield back to the floor. Madam Pro Tem Speaker.
Thank you for that, Speaker Damon, and also the comments made by Delegate Yanito. Committee members, are there any other questions or comments at this time? Vice Chair Casey Allen Johnson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem Speaker. Just want to thank the sponsors of this legislation.
Delegate Johnson, can you speak into the microphone?
Just want to thank Speaker Damon and also sponsors, co-sponsors. for this legislation. And I just wanted to ask the prime sponsor from the last meeting we had on this. I know there was a question of withdrawing this legislation and just going to referendum. Are you not going to withdraw it? Or are you just going to move forward with it? And that's my first question. And if we take a look around this council chamber, we were all here when we asked for a work session on this, but I think it's quite obvious, the direction this legislation is going to go in. And after reviewing, the comments, there's over 200 opposing this legislation, only 6 supporting it. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, Speaker Damon, if you would consider withdrawing it and giving it back to the people for referendum, or if you're just going to move forward with it. Just a couple questions, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Delegate Johnson. Speaker Damon, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the question. Again, I first of all want to say thank you to Madam Chair Charles Denton. Thank you very much for co-sponsoring this legislation. And at Naa'bik'iyati committee, she was the co-sponsor who took the helm over for me because I did have to leave to a meeting that was there held in Santa Fe regarding New Mexico capital outlay. So thank you very much, Madam Chair, for your perseverance in order to making change a possibility and having that avenue, having this conversation be at hand in order for us to ultimately, at the end of the day, I believe, to stop discriminating against certain people across the Navajo Nation. My response back to you, Honorable Casey Johnson, thank you for asking me the question, and thank you for wanting to know. I think maybe I didn't clarify in my presentation, in my opening dialogue, but I'll clarify right now. In 2005, the 20th Navajo Nation Council, 4 bodies ago, 4 councils ago, passed a resolution that was signed into law. That group, that body passed the Dene Marriage Act. That legislation specifically identified marriage between a man and a woman. At no point did they go out and consider a referendum to put that law into place. At no point did they have any public comment to put that law into place. That was made by leadership in this chamber. And because of that, I believe that this chamber, under this body, which is the 25th Council, has that same right to do that, to make that decision. I am not going to sponsor a legislation for a referendum. And the reason why is because in 2005, leadership made the decision in this chamber. In 2023, going into 2024, leadership's going to make that decision in this chamber. If that legislation is to kill this legislation, then that decision's made. If that decision is to vote this legislation down, that decision's made. If that decision is to pass this legislation by a simple majority and send this across to the president, who has stated on record that he supports this legislation. Madam Vice President just was here. Then that's the decision this body makes. If there is one of my colleagues that wants to sponsor a legislation for a referendum, let's have that conversation. But I'm not going to sponsor a legislation for a referendum on this issue, because I believe that, like the 20th Council made that decision, the 25th Council can make that decision too as well, specifically on delayed marriage. And that's the reason why I hope I answered your question, and I will not be withdrawing this legislation at all. So I hope to know that we can continue to have this conversation, and no matter what, again, I go back to it. 24th Navajo Nation Council, Vice Chair, we never got this far. Never got this far. 25th Council, we're slowly creeping towards it. 26th Council, we might not get it done this time, but it's going to get done. I might not be here when it's in there. You might not be here. We might not be here, but it's going to get done. I believe that. I honestly believe that. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I don't know how many councils it's going to take. I don't know. It possibly, I hope it's this council, but we'll see. So I hope I answered your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Speaker Damon. Committee members, are there any other questions or comments at this time? Second call, committee members, are there any other questions or comments at this time? Last and final call, committee members, are there any questions to the work session we are holding today on legislation number 0139-23? Not hearing anything, we have completed the work session topic A, B, and C. At this time, committee members, I want to thank you for coming in today. The work session is hereby concluded. Before we call the close of the work session, are there any announcements? Speaker Seth Damon, the floor is yours for announcements.
Thank you very much, Madam Pro Tem Speaker. Thank you for chairing the work session here today. Colleagues, I just want to first of all thank Mr. Joe, Dr. Danette Dale, and Ms. Gray Eyes, and then also thank Mr. Watchman for being here in the chambers with us here today. I just do thank Madam Vice President. It's good to see you. Hoka hey, it's good to see you, and I haven't seen you in a while, so it's good to see you. And I just want to announce that I hope everyone has a good Thanksgiving. Wherever you're going, safe travels. I know everyone's getting off apparently 1 o'clock, not 12 o'clock, but 1 o'clock, executive, legislative. I don't know if Madam Chief Justice is keeping her employees hostage till 5 o'clock, but I just want to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone, safe travels. I know a lot of you are going to be traveling this week, and wherever you're going, to my colleagues, I know sometimes it's hard to have time with your families. I know it's hard to have time and fellowship because of your demanding jobs. To the staff, I know it's hard to have time, family time, working late in hours on behalf of council. I just want to say, I hope that you take this time to really go ahead and reflect on everything you're going through and be thankful, as I am. I am thankful I'm in this position. I'm thankful of my communities that I represent. I'm thankful that I try to be somewhat of a decent father. I'm thankful that my granddaughter thinks I'm the most coolest person in the world. But I just want to say, please take time to feel human again, to feel that. I know you all work so hard wherever you go, and I just want you all to really connect back home with the people you love, because I know it's so hard for you all to do your job and stay away from your families all the time, and that has a huge strain on your relationships, huge strain on your opportunity to see moments in your lives that you don't and you possibly will never get back. You took a responsibility to accept the call to work for the Navajo people. You took the call to accept the ambition that we are all here at the end of the day to make a better tomorrow for our Navajo people that are inside our four sacred mountains and outside of four sacred mountains. So I just want to announce that I really want to make sure that you all take time, clarity, find yourselves again if you can, and whatever you're going through, struggles in life, it doesn't need to be my colleagues, it doesn't need to be staff. If you're listening in online, if you're going through something right now, there's always a better tomorrow. And I'm so thankful for this past year, for the growth and opportunity that I continue to have in making sure that I strive to possibly have a better work ethic and a better growth in order for us to have a better opportunity for my granddaughter, for your grandchildren, for our kids, but also pave the way for our next 7 generations. So again, thank you very much, Madam Chair, for giving me this time. Kat.
Thank you for that, Speaker Damon, and I think that we all grow each and every day. We all make mistakes, so it's always good. We learn from our mistakes. I always tell my son that I'm a failure in a lot of ways, so I hope he learns from me, and I hope that I learn from those failures, so I appreciate those words. So with that, committee members, we are now, if there's no other announcements? Okay, not seeing anything, not hearing anything. I'm going to go ahead and close this work session at 11:12. Thank you, committee members who were in attendance. Happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays for everyone out there. And remember, till Thanksgiving is over, it's still turkey holiday, not the fat boys holiday just yet. We're adjourned. Oh, I guess we do need to do that, but.